got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to another episode of DT Weekly for the 275th time. Oh my goodness, getting ever so close to episode 300. Guys, right before we jumped on the air tonight, recording Monday evening, we got news that Ben Johnson is set to become the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. Mitch, coming from Detroit, going to Chicago. I want your input here as the resident Detroit Lions fan.
It's a good move for the Bears. You know, it's always hard seeing the really good offensive coordinator going to be the head coach. But what we care about in Dynasty is these Dynasty values, how they're going to play out for the rest of the offseason now. And I was talking in the Discord a bit about it, but I just think it makes the Bears, all of the players there, safe. Caleb Williams isn't going to drop in value. DJ Moore's not going to drop in value. Rome Odunze is probably going to go up a little bit. I think the one that we're going to see the most go up the most, someone brought it up, I don't remember it, but it's Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet is going to see, right now he's probably tight end 20, something like that. I would bet by the start, probably August. I bet August he's a top 10 Dynasty tight end as far as values go. It's just because everything after the top 7 sucks. But I do think he's going to get hyped up that much. But no, it's a great move for the Bears. Good for them.
Now, I wanted to put a baseline so we can go back and we can listen to this. As of January 20th, around 4 p.m. Eastern time, the KTC values. And I know when you're listening to this, you probably hear KTC and it's like, ugh. But it just gives us a reference point. I want to look at where their values are today. And we know if there is a market, if there are data inputs out there, KTC is the most reactive. So Caleb Williams, I won't say Caleb Johnson, Caleb Williams, quarterback 11, 6,400 points on their value scale in Superflex. DeAndre Swift, 3,000 points, running back 30. Roshan, 2,100, running back 52. Rome Odunze, 5,100, wide receiver 17. DJ Moore, 4,400, wide receiver 28. Keenan Allen, 2,200, down at wide receiver 71. And then Cole Kmet, and this is in non-premium, 2,450 at tight end 20. So there, when you look at it, it does feel like the insulation is going to be there just strictly because of the hire. We get a fun offensive-minded coach. But really, how much higher is Caleb going to go just over the course of the offseason? Running backs, whatever. Rome Odunze already at 17. How much more is he going to increase? But that kind of goes into Dan mentioning Rome Odunze several times on the show as a buy. If you were able to buy, now you get that value insulation, at least if the value is not going to rise anymore. And I think Cole Kmet, he's the one at tight end 20 that there probably is the most room. And I think DJ Moore, he's safe in that wide receiver 28. And then you have the extra variable of Keenan Allen. What is going to happen with him? Is he going to be back in Chicago? So that's a question mark. Dan, Coach Dan Dynasty on X, brand new handle. How do you look at this situation? Like, obviously it's good from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, new year, new handle, boys. And I think it's just good luck in the new year that this news broke before tonight's pod, because I think this is probably going to be the biggest news of the offseason. I think there were 3 huge winners, and probably more than 3, but 3 huge winners for individual fantasy players. And I think there was one big loser. Now, Caleb, to me, it saved his career. Like, I was really worried that this kid who's had some immaturity issues, taken kind of how easy he thought the NFL was going to be for granted, really needed a mature coach with a good offensive mind, and I think he got them both. Unfortunately, at the cost of Mitch and his Lions there, man. And we've all gone through it with our teams. You lose a good coach, but it's kind of a good problem to have. It's a compliment to Dan Campbell, who, hey, I don't think he's going to have trouble bringing someone else good because they see what they're doing in Detroit. But like Caleb, guys, I had between 4 and 8. I think when we get to this year's Dynasty drafts, that's when it's like really tough decision time. Like, which franchise quarterback do you want to build at? And going into this hire, because of uncertainty of who the Bears are going to hire, I had Caleb at the end of that list. Now that they hire a Ben Johnson, I'm probably moving him up ahead of a Jalen Hurts, who I'm starting to, I have a little bit of potential worry about. All right. And we can get into that if you'd like. I'd be glad to. But I think he saves Caleb.
Not on this show.
I think he saves Rome. because it's all connected together. I think he saves Kmet, who is near like obsolete in tight end land, that, you watch some games and Kmet flashes and then he just goes away from long periods of time. So, hey, if he can replicate, even come close to replicating what he did in Detroit, he's going to have to build that offensive line up some and, bring these guys along. But he could really we know his offenses could support more than one, more than two guys. I think the other guys I got to watch a little bit more. I think it definitely helps DJ more. He could be the sun god in this offense, which is exciting. The running game, we got to see who they draft, what direction he wants to take it in. Keenan, I'm a little age discriminatory against there. But then the big loser of this, guys, is Trevor Lawrence. Like, he really needed Ben Johnson to come there. Now we got to wait and see what happens in Jacksonville.
Mitch, let me ask you really quick. The offensive line, that's the big point here. And they need to build that up. You need to get Caleb Williams to be able to get rid of the ball a little bit sooner. But like DeAndre Swift, he played in a Ben Johnson offense.
Yes.
And then they end up trading him for very
that's the thing. I don't like, who knows how much of that was Ben Johnson, who knows how much of it was Deuce Staley at the time, maybe Dan Campbell. You just don't know. The only thing that I do worry about, like, I'll give kind of the devil's advocate point of view as a Lions fan. Ben Johnson's had like a top 5 offensive line for the last 3 or 4 years, like absolute dominant, and allows you to do a lot of things when you have an offensive line you just don't have to worry about. The Bears don't have that same thing. And so it makes you wonder. I think Ben Johnson's going to do really well, but that's like the one pushback is always whenever you get these really good hot name offensive coordinators that are like, they have a specific system they like. Well, when you take like the foundational piece away from it, how does that really work out?
I think
look at the way the offense runs and how these plays, like, they're very creative, but sometimes it takes time for them to develop. And if you don't have the offensive line, if you don't have a quarterback that's going to be able to run that system, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. But I think it all goes back to the value insulation, at least throughout the offseason. And these are safe assets to invest in the quarterback and wide receiver position, certainly in my opinion. And Dan, you were going to say something to bring us home here on Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I think the hope is, maybe, Mitch brings up a good point. I think if you're the Bears organization who, has made some not so great decisions in the past, but they're starting to build some good momentum again, that they bought in on Ben Johnson with a plan to say, hey, this is the formula. This is the secret sauce that did it in Detroit. We're going to build through the O-line now. So I think, to Mitch's point, we're going to be watching closely in draft and free agent to see, hey, are they building that same secret sauce that they did in Detroit? Or, is Ben Johnson not ready to be a head coach? Right now, I think we give him the benefit of the doubt, especially in fantasy, because it lends some good expectations for our guys.
Had to touch on some of that breaking news there because, like Dan said, probably the biggest piece in the quarterback dominoes here at this point in the offseason. And make sure you check out everything on the channel here at DD Fantasy Football. Over the last week, we put out episodes. Scott did Destination Dynasty. We got Ty and Gabe on the All Gas Trade Show. We did a 2 quarterback rookie mock draft, Startup Value Show on the last episode of DT Weekly. And then Mitch and I, we did the top 5 rookie running backs in Trending Fantasy. So much content. So make sure you like the video, hit subscribe. And now we're going to get into some Dynasty traps. Dynasty traps here at the end of January as we gear up for the Dynasty season here. So really, there are so many young Dynasty assets, right? And a lot of people they're going to fall in love with a lot of them this offseason. There are going to be some that maybe we should pump the brakes on. Maybe we should look to hold off on acquiring them either at their current price or just in general as the offseason progresses. So maybe it's because of a free agency thing, NFL draft. We just think when the season rolls around, it's going to be a bad situation. So we're going to dive into that tonight. Mitch, I want to start with you. Let's go through each position. At the quarterback position, is there somebody that's really being hyped up that you're like, whoa, I'm going to hold off just for a little bit at least?
Jordan Love. This one, like we went through all the positions. I had a hard time with the rest of the positions. This one was easy. It's Jordan Love. We have killed CJ Stroud this offseason for, hey, you know, he's just a pocket passer. He's never going to give you anything in the run game. That's literally Jordan Love, but the Packers love to run the ball. So even if they're down 14 points, it doesn't turn into, hey, Jordan Love, go save us. It's, hey, Josh Jacobs, maybe you could save us. And then it's Jordan Love time. He had 3 top 10 quarterback finishes this year weekly. The vast majority of his games, they're 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Every once in a while, he'll get up to 3. Most of the time, it's right around that 202 touchdown mark. He had a total of 83 rushing yards for the entire season. He is giving you nothing there. And when you're getting nothing there, and we know they're a running team, and they will continue to be a running team, that's not going to change. I just cannot buy into Jordan Love at his dynasty value.
Right now on Fantasy Calc, quarterback 11, very end of the second in startups. Obviously, there's going to be a little variance depending on what type of league you get into. If you're in a league where quarterback is overvalued or maybe valued correctly, then he's going to be bumped up a little bit. But Dan, what are your thoughts there on Mitch's take on Jordan Love and maybe quarterback 11 just being a price point that you're not interested in? Or maybe you are.
I think Mitch is spot on. Man, I hate disagreeing with Mitch like I am tonight so early. It's a little heavy here, but what a difference a year makes, right? Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. I have those 2 names right next to each other in my rankings after that 4 through 8 range that I talked about earlier that, you know, I'm bumping Caleb Williams up in. I want to get one of those guys in that 4 through 8 range because I don't want to fall down to CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, even my boy Dak. Like, there's just, at this point in the year, we see it in our DD fantasy community. There's already mocks going on. There's already early startups for you crazies. These guys are there. And based on what we saw, there are 2 offenses in Love and Stroud. Stroud wasn't my guy for this answer, but I'm just coupling them together that they switched to run-heavy teams with a lot of questions in the passing game. So I'd rather fade right there. You know, unless it for some reason fell really late in my lap, I think Mitch is right on.
All right, so pulling up Dynasty Daddy right now, a few trades that just off the bat here over the last couple of days that are standing out to me. It's always tough to break down a player, especially like a higher end quarterback, when there are so many pieces included on both sides. But Mitch, where are you on this one on the screen right now? Joe Burrow for Jordan Love and George Pickens. 2 quarterback. Where'd she go?
You're good. It was there, but I'm going Joe Burrow without a doubt. Like that's a smash for me.
I'm there too, Dan.
I agree with you both. I think I would take that side. Does the start 11 concern either of you though at all?
No,
not for
2
me.
for 1.
No.
And I don't think the quarterback scoring would shift it either way because of the volume we get from Joe Burrow.
It sounds like we're all willing to lose George Pickens right now.
Yes.
That is fair.
Oh my goodness. What is this one? Josh Allen for Jordan Love, Jalen Wright, and DeVonta Smith.
I don't know.
Oh, here we go. This one's a little bit more. So this is start 10, but it's funny because it's a very similar framework. Jordan Love, George Pickens, and 109, 12-team Superflex, start 10, full PPR, extra point for tight ends. So Love, Pickens, 109, or Joe Burrow and Quentin Johnston. Does that 109 Quentin Johnston swap change it for anybody?
It's extremely close for me now. Where before it wasn't there. Quentin Johnston, I know he produced this year, but dynasty-wise, he's a nothing. So you're pretty much getting, what's that, almost 3.5 first for Joe Burrow? I think that's pretty fair.
No disagreement.
I like it when you guys disagree with me. This show's a lot better.
Yeah, I could have on that one, but not enough.
Straight up, Jordan Love or CJ Stroud?
Stroud. He's just better.
Yeah, I'll go Stroud. That's close. Flip a coin.
I'll go Stroud too because again, we talk about what that baseline was. What the public perception was of that player. If people liked him, like we look at CJ Stroud, he was a top 2 or 3 dynasty quarterback last offseason in existing leagues, in startups, and now like Jordan Love, he was never up there. He was higher, but I'll go CJ Stroud here as well. And then let's see here. Oh, okay. Breece Hall, Jordan Love, and George Pickens, or Jayden Daniels, Adonai Mitchell, and the 301. So really, Love, Pickens, and Hall. There's a lot of Love and Pickens combinations here tonight for Jayden Daniels. 12-team, start 10, full PPR. What do we think?
I think Breece Hall makes it too big of a haul.
Exactly. Agreed.
Hall
Pun
with
intended.
the Hall. All right.
That's one of them where you can live with Jordan Love.
I think I would go Jayden Daniels.
Ooh, JB drinking the Kool-Aid.
Especially if it's a +4 -2 league. There would be a little bit of that change for me there. But right now we're talking about Jayden Daniels as a top 3 startup pick.
Yeah. In every one I've done, he's been top 3.
So we're talking about that.
JB, where's my challenge flag here?
No,
let me
I'll tell you where to stick the flag.
Wait, come on, JB. You are the kind of guy in drafts that normally trades back.
That's
so
correct.
you would I know you would trade back and pass on getting Jayden Daniels and take those extra few picks, which would result in Breece Hall, Jordan Love, and George Pickens.
Really, this would be close to like getting a mid-second, a third, and a 4th or a 5th for your 103, which is pretty close to the value you do like, John, and that
right
for trading
Mitch,
back in the first round.
Mitch, you know JB better than anybody in these startup drafts, and you know he would take that. JB, I think you need to rethink that, and Mitch is going to let me win this challenge.
No. So you make a very good point. In startups, that typically is the way I approach it. But Mitch, you've seen this go into effect. Dan, you've seen it. Once we are in existing leagues and we're going, that's when I like to be a little bit more aggressive and use that depth to be able to package up. So it is selective aggression, if you will. And I will select to be aggressive here with that specific trade.
Is that different than John Cena's ruthless aggression, or I don't know? I never heard that one before.
It's a little more tame, not ruthless.
More family friendly. All right.
Yeah, a little bit. So they're talking about Jordan Love. I think those are fair price points overall, especially like the one where we incorporated the 109 in Quentin Johnston. Mitch, that really made you pause. So I think that was a kind of a fair price point there to break the conversation. Let us know in the comments, where are you on Jordan Love? Do you think he rebounds? Do you think we see some higher end production, or do we continue to see kind of that very unfavorable touchdown to interception ratio that we kind of started to see here in 2025, or should I say 2024, since it was the 24 season? Dan, quarterback for you that you're pumping the brakes on a little bit.
For me, Mitch might throw something across the screen at me right now. I'm not sure. Not that I don't like this guy. I'm going to name a lot of guys tonight that I like, but where they're going, and I might pump the brakes based on this time of the year. For me, it's Drake May. I'm a little bit worried. As much as I love Coach Vrabel, these Josh McDaniels whispers, I have just like Tim Tebow nightmares. Like, I don't know where they're going to go with Josh McDaniels. And he is starting with like 0 offensive weapons in New England. I know that I'm sure they're going to sign somebody or something, but you got just, to me, a bare bones offense with some nervous talk of who they're hiring at OC. So I think as high as the hype of him right now, I'd probably pass on him at this point in the year.
See, it was bare bones last year. It was, they talk about the locker room being lost. Drake May in a terrible situation. He was still rather effective. And I think he exceeded expectations. So if I had a flag to throw, I'd be throwing it right back at you, Dan.
Yeah, but that's not what this question asks here, JB, in the show notes. Like, this question is not saying, do you like or not like Drake May, or do you want him or not want him on your team? But where he's going to go in drafts right now, with all the risks that there are, just tells me I'm going to let someone else take him.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this show. Every single player we mentioned, they are a young dynasty asset that people are going to like. So I fully expect the comments to be like, oh, hey, Dan's crazy over that. Oh, hey, Mitch is stupid because of what he said about Jordan Love. Or the running back I'm going to pick. I guarantee there's going to be some people being like, you're stupid. And I'm like, I get it, but all of these guys can't hit every year. It's kind of how it works. Some guys go up, some guys go down, and we're just playing the likelihood that we think one of these can happen.
Right,
Drake May, John, was like in Russ Wilson statistical territory and not with Bo Nix. I mean, yeah. Are you going to be aggressive taking him JB in drafts?
Now here's the asterisk, right?
No,
I
here we
took
go.
my
More,
startup.
Mitch, more of selective aggression
Where
from
did you take
John.
It was early second.
Now that was a 14-team league, right?
14
So what was
teamer.
he? Quarterback 10?
Yeah, probably right there. 10 or
Okay.
11.
But here's the thing for me, like
Rich.
that's kind of the tier. We talked about this on the quarterback episode we did a while back, where if I can get my high end pieces, we're seeing more and more of a gap between the top 4, 5-ish, let's say, and then the quarterback 8 through 16 or whatever. So I don't mind fading quarterback in a 12-team league, kind of that middle and back end of the second. It's probably just not the way I would be looking to build. And to Dan's point, fading him at his price, if you're in an existing league, it's going to cost a good bit to take him, because I think people that took him in rookie drafts saw enough to have high hopes. So Brian Thomas or Drake May, I would lean Brian Thomas, I think.
I agree, because if you're in super flex and you're starting 11, that receiver position is going to be very important for you. You're probably starting 3 of them. I'm probably getting my elite quarterback out of the way, and my next pick's not going to be Drake May. It's going to be a Brian Thomas type. So I would lean that way.
And the start 11 aspect, like start 10 in my tiers, they're in the same tier. So over here at ddfantasyfootball.com, you get into the Discord. There is a link in the episode description below to get access to the Discord and all the good stuff. Use code Theory, click the link. Again, it's in the episode description. Last week there was a comment, hey, where's the link? For the third time, it's in the episode description. Click it. Come check it out. But anyway, the start 11, it does swing me a little bit. So that's a good point there to bring up, Dan. Mitch?
No, I want the quarterback still.
Oh,
Look,
okay.
Drake May's giving you 4 points a game, just rushing. Rushing, his floor, 4 points a game.
JB, you noticed the beginning of the show, I was agreeing with Mitch, and then we started this segment with him agreeing with my Drake May point, and then the Mitch homer came out, and I told you Mitch wouldn't agree with me. Admit it, Mitch. You love Drake May. Love him. You believe in him, and that's okay.
Oh, I do. But it's my thing is with the rushing quarterbacks. If you look at the rushing quarterbacks right now who give you ceiling, you have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels. And then you pretty much have Jalen Hurts there. And afterwards, Mahomes.
I was going to say, what about Jalen? There's a lot of Jalen Hurts animosity tonight, guys, and I don't know if I can stand for it.
Well, it was because of how far you had.
Listen,
I was reading off your tiers. You just had him a little further down, and I had to skip a player to get to him. 2 players.
Once Shane catches wind of this episode, boys, he's after you guys. Get him.
I'll deal with that Eagles fan later. All right. Mind you, he did take future Cowboy Ashton Genty in a 101 mock draft. So I think there's a little Homer Cowboy in Shane if he does listen to this episode.
Get over it. Get over it. Ashton Genty Cowboys. Come on. All right. Drake May and Puka, or Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and CJ Stroud. Oh, and we're getting a 2026 third kicker throw.
Dead even. Exactly even. Just even. That's what it is. May's a little better than Stroud. Amon-Ra's a little better than Puka, but he's a little bit older. Puka probably has Stafford, but who knows for how long. Yeah, it's a perfectly even trade in my opinion.
I would take the Stroud side.
I would lean the Stroud side just for the Stroud upside that we saw last year. If we don't get that Stroud upside, Mitch is right on. I mean,
I'm saying I would take the Stroud side, but you talk about upside. Stroud, and I was ready for this. Stroud this year, he averaged 14 points per game and +4, -2 scoring. Last year, 18.5 points per game, but he still only eclipsed 20 points in that format 5 times.
Yeah,
So-
no, he was really good in the playoffs. That's why we hyped him up. He had that great playoff run, and everyone fell in love with him. And this offense is going to be amazing. They traded for Diggs, and then everyone was like, oh, he has to be like really, really good for this to work out okay. And he didn't live up to it this year.
There's a team where we talk about fixing O-lines and offensive coordinators and having the right people in there. There's a lot of questions right now.
Yeah, look at Bobby Slovic right now. Bobby Slovic was the Ben Johnson of last year, and now
I was just going to say, is there an OC that lost as much potential value and money from a head coaching perspective as Bobby Slovic? I don't know if there is. All right, running over to you, Dan, and we're running over with running backs. Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, James Cook, DeVonta Smith. They're all 26 or younger, and they're all ranked in the top 10. And Mitch, I called you out on this behind the scenes, but I was okay with it. Bucky Irving would be in there too, but he was removed because that might be the unanimous answer here. But out of the guys mentioned, Dan, is there one that scares you for dynasty purposes? Forget about that all of them are running backs. They all should scare you. But out of this group, who scares you the most?
Answering the question as you presented, JB, who scares me the most? It's close. I'm a little bit James Cook, just thinking there's going to be some hard touchdown regression. Ray Davis is flashing. Ty Johnson still gets involved. And I like the guy. I'm not going to shy away from drafting James Cook next year. But of these guys, but I could easily say, hey, Kyren Williams, short leash, Corum behind him. He could fumble now and then. I could see that scaring someone. Achane in the Miami offense. If Tyreek Hill leaves, as their head coach seems to be going in limbo, that could scare me a little bit. But again, I love all three running backs. I think they're all studs. I'm just monitoring those situations closely, and a little bit of that Buffalo offense just puzzles me. It absolutely puzzles me, from the running backs to the receivers to the tight end that we're going to talk about later. It puzzles me. And James Cook's been awesome because of that heavy volume of touchdowns this year. Will it be the same next year? I don't know.
I can't include Bijan. If I'm going to pick one, it's not going to be Bijan. It's not going to be Gibbs. It's not going to be Achane. Breece Hall, that offense was absolute trash. And he's still involved in the passing game.
Yeah, he had 1,500 scrimmage yards still.
We know what he is capable of. And from a point per game perspective, it wasn't bad. Just the expectation was so high because of what we've seen from Breece Hall in the past. The assumption that Aaron Rodgers showing up was going to improve that offense. So I'm going to remove him. That brings me to Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, James Cook. Jonathan Taylor, you could say he's not involved in the passing game, and outside of his one season that really put him to the running back one that year, he hasn't been. But just as a pure runner, the dude is just a stud. He really is. And I think from a value perspective, it's hard to say running backs have insulated value. But Jonathan Taylor, it kind of came down a little bit. And just towards the end of the year, he was getting the usage on the ground. He was getting the touchdowns. And I can't include him. And people want to fade Kyren Williams so much. He just gets all the work. So I'm not going to include him. So by default, and I hate that it's bringing me to the same conclusion that Dan was at, but by default, it kind of goes to James Cook. He has 20 touchdowns in his career so far. 16 came here in 2024. And I hate to say, because it's so stupid when you hear it out loud, but the touchdown regression, it's a thing. Oh, well, I don't want him because he scores too many touchdowns. Again, when you say it out loud, it's what? But 37% of his points this year, weeks 1 through 17, came from rushing touchdowns. And it's not like it's because he's getting a ton of work inside the 5. He's getting solid work, but I would expect those numbers to come down a little bit. And when you're looking at Bijan with Algier, Breece Hall with oh my gosh, brain fart.
Braylon Allen.
Braylon Allen. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's why I keep you around, Mitch. Jahmyr Gibbs, just still too dynamic. Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, DeVonta Smith. Like Ray Davis, I think presents the challenge that could really start to take a little bit more work if he shows to be more than competent. So by default, I'm going to say James Cook. But again, it's not necessarily anti-James Cook. It's just more pro the other guys, if you want to look at it that way. Mitch, you were kind of making a face. I think you were taking notes. You had a rebuttal maybe lined up.
So if it's a standard league, no points for reception, Achane is my guy that I'm okay being a little bit hesitant on because so many of his points, I mean, he's Austin Eckler at this point for me. Like, absolutely love the guy, explosive, amazing, but a lot of his points come through receiving. So if we're not going to have that, I am going to be willing to say Achane. But I also picked James Cook, and this was the reason why. So if you compare his 24 season to the 23 season, he had less rushing yards, less attempts, less targets, less receptions, less success rate. But like John said, he went from 2 touchdowns to 16. I mean, just like he didn't have that good of a year. He just had every single touchdown. And we know how that plays out in fantasy. So he's the one guy to where I say it a lot to where this guy is ranked there by default. And I definitely think James Cook being a top 10 back right now is default, that all the other backs they're either old or they didn't have 16 rushing touchdowns this season, right?
James Cook, weeks 1 through 17, again, just looking at weeks 1 through 17 because of the fantasy season for most, he was at 17.2 points per game in PPR. And you think about James Cook and you're like, he had a great year. And then you think about Breece Hall and you're like, oh my God, shit. He was at 14.8 points per game. And I think the way the season ended for both really, like, James Cook popped off a 19, a 26, a 27-point game. Breece Hall had a 14-point game, a 6-point game, a 6-point game, 13. So, like, I think there's a little recency bias there. So I would expect Breece Hall to bounce back. But again, like, I know how dumb it sounds to say I'm worried about a guy because he scored too many touchdowns. Wait, so you're worried about a guy because he did something that we want him to do? A little bit.
Hey, what's good about this is we are going to get to points in the draft, and our listeners are going to get to points in the draft, and they're going to have to make decisions on these guys. And sometimes it's very hard, and you have to have some conviction somewhere. We go back to a year ago where Jonathan Taylor went into last year with a lot more risk based on injuries and performance and those kind of things. But I'm happy that I was bullish on him last year because I remember that game film that I watched a couple of seasons ago. Like, I knew how awesome he was. Just like you pointed out, JB, about Breece Hall. You're being bullish on him because you know what this guy could do. And I think that'll be the case next year. I think that talent's going to find its way. I think a new coaching staff will get that out of Breece. Again, there's just some uncertainty in Buffalo. Is Joe Brady even coming back? I don't know. Do they have a different strategy this year? We'll see what they do next year.
And I just want to show real quick, I rarely show this on the stream, but my cross-positional tiers, looking at it like James Cook strictly. So he's 10th overall when you look at fantasy calculi value just within the position. So 10th in the position, 47th overall. If I'm choosing between James Cook or like Michael Penix is right there in a 12-team super flex league, I'm probably going to go the quarterback. And that kind of, like, if we're talking about a startup, that kind of ties into the fact where I just got done saying, ideally, I'm not going to take a quarterback at the back end of the second. This is the way I would prefer to build. Tua, he's 51st overall. So if you're choosing between Tua, and I know a lot of people, they have their injury concerns, but like, I that's kind of where some of that's, coming into play. T. Higgins would be there. He's 42nd overall. So I think it comes down to the way you build your teams, the roster constructions aspect of it. And then if you're really interested in a more detailed view of my cross-positional tiers, which includes top 3 rounds of rookie picks right now, come over to ddfantasyfootball.com, sign up for the Discord and all the good stuff. Code Theory.
And everyone, I'll make sure that he fix his Kyren Williams ranking as well. That'll probably be fixed before next episode. So no worries there.
What, too low?
You have him in the same one as James Cook. I mean,
I don't think there's I do have them tiered together.
I know. I'm saying that's the issue here.
Okay,
They should. I'm with JB though. I think those two are tiered together. I have them tiered together.
But again, the way I narrowed it down, Kyren and James Cook, it was like American Idol, whose name was going to be called on the last one. Kyren was right there if we're looking at all of those guys. So, yeah. Will I fix it? It's already fixed. It's already perfect.
Okay, sure.
So James Cook across the board, if we're picking any of those guys that are 26 or younger, that are currently ranked as top 10 dynasty backs, that's our guy. Now, Mitch, we have a ton of young wide receivers. A ton of guys that have really nice dynasty value, not including Tet, not including Burden, Egbuka, Trey Harris, Travis Hunter, any of the guys coming in, and they're going to elevate the position overall whenever you look at the guys going early in rookie drafts. And we know there's the often injured guys. You look at Jalen Waddle, you look at Chris Olave. Everybody wants to trade them. Hey, they're on the block. It's not point scoring season, so somebody should be willing to pay their price. But outside of kind of the guys we just mentioned, who is a young wide receiver that you're probably not going to be looked to increase your rostership, your overall exposure across your dynasty teams from this point on over the course of the offseason?
I'm including this guy as a young wide receiver still because I believe he counts.
Devontae Adams.
No, DeVonta Smith, though, he's 26. I think that's pretty young still. My biggest pushback with him is I think he is ranked exactly what he is. KTC has him as wide receiver 17. John, I think you have him right around wide receiver 20-ish.
In that
the problem is he had 2 games over 100 yards. He's a wide receiver 2. He's going to give you just as many top 10 games during a season as he's going to give you 50 to worst fantasy, as far as finishes during the season. I don't think he gives you that really good of a ceiling. And yeah, he gives you kind of a floor each week, but I really worry with how good that Philadelphia Eagles run game is and how good Saquon Barkley is. I almost don't love AJ Brown as much. And AJ Brown is my third favorite wide receiver in the league. I love watching the dude every single week, but I really worry they don't have to throw the ball. They just don't. And I think there's a strong chance that next year, maybe Jalen Hurts gets up to 3,500 yards passing, which is good. It's fine. But it really does hurt a wide receiver 2 in that offense. So when I'm clicking names in startups or I'm looking at names on the trade block, DeVonta Smith, if I see his name on a trade block, my head isn't going, oh, hey, I want to trade for him, to where there's a lot more guys in that 24 to 26-year-old range that I'm wanting to buy into.
90% of the comments and points you made for DeVonta Smith, I'm going to use for Zay Flowers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
that's fair.
No, come on, JB. Zay's a dude.
Zay's a dude. Where was this dude?
He was injured technically.
Lamar can still pass when he's healthy.
The last games, let's see.
He isn't a similar scoring to DeVonta Smith.
5 for 62, 2 for 39, 4 for 34. He had a boom game against the Broncos. After that, he just kind of disappeared. And you could say, well, we started to get into the winter and the cold wintry months, and it was Derrick Henry time. But Zay Flowers, he is going to be like Mitch mentioned with DeVonta Smith. Zay is going to be one of those interchangeable wide receiver 2s that if you have him on your roster, you're probably going to start him because you should be starting him, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to catapult himself up to a top 10 dynasty receiver, in my opinion. And I think so. If you're not missing out on that opportunity, that high upside, I'm okay moving on from Zay right now.
I'm thinking there's still a difference between those two guys, though. DeVonta had 2 100-yard receiving games. I think there's questions in Philadelphia with that passing game where they play good defenses. Like, they're lucky to have that O-line and Saquon Barkley right now. Hopefully Joystick doesn't go to Dallas and become their head coach, but I just don't see much future ceiling there for Hurts, for DeVonta. Whereas Zay Flowers, he didn't just have 2 100-yard receiving games. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 100-yard receiving games, almost had 6. He's tight to Lamar, who loves the guy and is going to pepper him. He's 2 years younger than DeVonta. I just think there's more upside, and their tiers are separated a bit. Do I disagree with you, JB, where he doesn't have that boom upside to ever touch that elite echelon? I agree with that, but I just think there's more season-winning potential from Zay Flowers, who did not make my list, whereas DeVonta Smith also made my list. It made my list because Mitch is a smart guy over there.
Okay, that's what we do.
So you presumably I should be able to get a plus with DeVonta Smith, in your opinion, if I move off of Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I would throw you a 3rd-round pick, or
Whoa! Don't break the bank.
Something, maybe a 2nd because I hate the Eagles. I would definitely give a plus. A Noah Gray type, a guy that you might just like that I could live without and gamble. A 3rd and a Noah Gray. I don't know.
Wow, you guys are too generous. You guys are far too generous.
Now I'm interested to see who Dan has on this.
I listed 6 guys.
Oh Lord, this is why. I say one
real quick.
Notes.
And
you nailed one of them.
I'm not done.
Oh, I know. I was trying to skip ahead, but here we are.
Zay Flowers, 62 yards per game this year. DeVonta Smith, 64 yards per game this year. Interesting. Okay. Maybe the touchdowns were better. Maybe the touchdowns were better for Zay Flowers. He had 4 touchdowns.
I think what you see is
Zay Flowers injured for like half the year. Was he so bad that I'm forgetting about him?
DeVonta Smith missed more games than Zay Flowers.
Okay.
Zay played hurt more. I think there's a lower floor on some games with Zay because there's more balls to go around and more ways the Ravens could score. Where, you just know where all the volume's going in Philly because there's no one else to throw to. It's Brown and DeVonta. Sometimes
I
Dallas
forgot the
Goddard,
Ravens have just that amazing wide receiver core. I forgot about that, Dan.
Hey, Bateman had a very good year. Mark Andrews gets the ball, likely gets involved. They just pepper guys in different ways. Lamar
Dallas
takes
Goddard,
over.
AJ Brown.
Dallas is overrated.
Saquon
Dallas
Barkley
Goddard.
better in the receiving game than Derrick Henry.
That's for sure. I'll give you that one.
I'm just
looking, but look at those splash games that Zay had. He had more of those big fantasy winning games. Again, the floor is a little lower some weeks. I'm higher on Zay, man. 2 years younger.
All right, so who is your guy here while I continue to dig in?
Your guy.
Who's your guy here?
The first guy that is definitely like the guy that I will not have any rostership of is Rashee Rice. Despite his injuries, despite his turmoil, I see him just instantly climbing back with this assumption that he's going to be Kansas City's guy. And I think there was an emergence of Xavier Worthy this year that was nice. And I'm just not that excited, Rashee. I would definitely fade him anywhere based on where I already see him going with a lot of question marks yet.
So that was going to be the guy that I chose, but I think there's a really strong chance to Travis Kelce retiring after this season. Let's say they do win another championship. Travis Kelce goes. They really don't have anyone else over the middle of the field to throw to. So Rashee Rice can just go into that Kelce role of the, little security blanket there. Then all of a sudden it's huge. And so that's the only reason why I didn't list him on what's the chance on Kelce not coming back next year? But I agree with your other points.
Kelsey's still playing well. I don't.
Great.
I'm kind of banking on him coming back, but you got to be ready for it at some point, right, Mitch? So I definitely could see that. I kind of like Noah Gray, but I know he's no Travis Kelce.
Right.
But I think Kansas City would sign someone else. We'll see.
Oh, John's ready.
John's
been doing. He was licking his lips. It was go time.
Quit making the numbers work for you.
I'm like
here,
Belichick's
JB.
not on the sideline. just licking over here. I think we lost every viewer when they just saw that. Zay Flowers had 3 games over 20 fantasy points this year. DeVonta Smith had 4. DeVonta Smith had a 28-point game, a 30-point game. Zay Flowers, he had a 29-point game, and then 2 at 22. So I'm just saying, I think it's being overblown a little bit. The backlash I'm receiving here when it comes to DeVonta Smith. That's all I'm saying. I didn't mean to get so defensive, but
you mean on Zay Flowers?
I mean, but DeVonta Smith had 833 yards, while Zay was a 1,000-yard receiver, made his first Pro Bowl. The confidence level is going to go up.
I gave you the. I get no. I gave you.
You're a per game guy, but I like total numbers too. I think they're important as well. You know, it's like
they don't matter. They don't.
It's like hitting 50 home runs in baseball. Once you do it once, you know you could do it again. Zay's now a 1,000-yard receiver. You know, I could see an uptick there. I could see a higher ceiling.
Did you just compare averaging 60 yards per game in the NFL to hitting 50 home runs? Come on.
No, I compared a 1,000-yard receiver to hitting 50 home runs.
Yeah, we don't do per game around here. I'm sorry. Let me know in the comments who would you be willing to fade more at their respective price, DeVonta Smith or Zay Flowers? I want a running tally.
I want to know why I'm getting brought into this.
But here's the thing. Like, I didn't disagree with what you said.
I know.
But Dan got me going. All right. So
that's my job.
Do you have anybody else? You had 38 wide receivers you want to talk about, Dan?
Just a few names. Now, these next 2 guys I love. It's just Nico Collins.
No.
Based on everything we just talked about, CJ Stroud, he just feels a little too rich for an offense that went backwards. He is a stud. I agree he's a stud.
Who else is wrong?
He's about to get over that 26-year-old threshold, too. Another stud, Malik Nabers, just till I see he gets a quarterback. Like, is someone going to throw him the ball? I'm saying he's going to go
through him the ball, and he was fine.
Yeah, I need to see him get a quarterback. What I'm saying is, if I'm in a draft, I'm going to draft a guy he's going ahead of Brian Thomas, isn't he? In startups,
he's
I'd rather
really close. Yeah,
it's close. I'd rather get Brian Thomas or I don't know. I just think he's going to go a little higher.
It's good if you just pick one. Then you can't throw yourself under the bus like 5 times.
And then the easier ones were George Pickens and Jayden Reed. I think there's still going to be people out there that just still love those guys for some reason. And I like Jayden Reed's talent. I don't like his situation. And then George Pickens, I'm out on right now. Ugh.
I like Pickens. And you call yourself a Georgia Bulldog fan. You make me sick.
Touche. But from the Steeler fan there. But JB, like Pickens is just he's like Antonio Brown. And he's not even out of the league yet. Like, I'm really concerned about his mental health at this point.
He's a head case. He's immature. He's a head case.
Bad. Really
but
bad.
The dude can play, and I think his price has gotten low enough that I'd be interested to see where people are. To wrap it up here, it seems like we talk about this fella every so often.
Okay, let me say why. Okay, so I did the show sheet this time, and we want to bring up a tight end that, you're worried about it falling into a trap. The problem is there's no young tight ends that are ranked high. Somehow KTC, I looked and they have Tucker Kraft as tight end 7. That's insane because no one's paying that price, right? They have the guy we're going to bring up is Dalton Kincaid. He's 25 years old. I think people still have that elevated value on him, but I think he is the trap that's left of the top 10 as far as what you're going to have to pay value wise to get him.
Yeah, I think he is, especially in startups, he's going to be there more often.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we talked about during the startup show, where if you don't get, you say there aren't that many high-end tight ends that are young, outside of the top 3.
Yeah, the elites.
And then it's you can start mixing in these older guys. And Dalton Kincaid, he's young, but if he's not going to give you production, I don't give a damn how young he is.
He averaged 3 catches this year. My notes say he is closer to Chiggy Okonkwo than he is David Montgomery. And I truly believe it. Per game wise, that's how it is. And if you want, call him a top 10 tight end. I don't care. He shouldn't be in the top 20. He just isn't.
Do you remember the discourse last offseason? A lot of people were looking at his numbers and Sam Laporta, and Sam Laporta is because of the touchdowns. But take the touchdowns away this year, Sam Laporta still outperformed. And Dan, this hits close to home because you like Dalton Kincaid, in the past, at least. I think you liked him enough for DFS this weekend. He hurt you. He's hurt you bad.
He's hurt me time and time again. This may be one of my biggest failures in raising my children here. Like, he's just not turning out the way I anticipated. Like, I'm telling you, I think of your brother, Mitch, every time. Like, I'm telling you, you've got to call your brother one day and just ask him to pull up all the overpaying trades I offered him from Kincaid. And Mitch's brother just dug his heels, was respectful as could be. It's like, Dan, no, I'm just holding him. Nope. And I don't blame him. But man, he saved me because I offered a lot. But I just keep, this is one of those times where normally I put my heels in the ground with you two guys, but I'm really struggling to do it every time I watch that Buffalo offense. And like, even when Allen has his big games, and he only has them when he has to right now. Like, when he doesn't throw for 300 yards, fantasy owners are still lucky because he runs so much and he still finds the end zone. But that ball is so spread out, even in his best games. And it seems like they like to scheme Kincaid up in like the first couple series, and then they just forget about him, and then maybe he gets a target later in the game if you're lucky. And to Mitch's point, man, like, that is Chigaquanko volume right now. Like, my boy Tommy Tremble is like creeping up to Kincaid. I exaggerate a little, but I'm worried. He was a guy that I had in my top 5. He is no longer there. I've got him 9 right now, and that's just because I still like his talent, and he still has Josh Allen. But as far as volume and production, we get into drafts next year, he's going to have to fall in my lap. Sad.
Trying to see, not quite, but over 2023 and 2024, Kincaid has outscored Okonkwo by a minimal amount.
Yeah.
Minimal.
Yeah.
And actually this season, Kincaid was outscored by Okonkwo. Like, it's just, and it's funny because I was thinking about this when you said Rashad Bateman. Doesn't it feel like Rashad Bateman gets like the first touchdown for the Ravens constantly, and then he's nowhere to be seen the rest of the game?
He has
and
stretches.
It's similar to Dalton Kincaid, but Dalton Kincaid's not finding the end zone.
Although we love fantasy in these like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson offenses, and so you play them a lot extra in DFS. So I watch probably extra their games. Like, they'll be on the main TV while there's like 4 games on one other TV. And like, even Bateman JB has more of a like role in the offensive game plan. I don't see it in Kincaid. And like, you could actually do like a Buffalo Bills episode on their offense. Like, if you're a Keon Coleman lover, if you're a Shakir lover, I don't care who you like in that passing game, I'm worried about him. Like, I just don't see a ceiling anywhere for any of these guys to break out next year. Maybe if Joe Brady leaves and he gets a head coaching job and there's a new offensive philosophy, then you have hope. But under Joe Brady, I'm not seeing it.
Who's going to score? Just to sum it up, who's going to score more points next year to bring it full circle? Cole Kmet or Dalton Kincaid?
You fade in the draft, get yourself a good running back or receiver, pass on Kincaid, and you're happy with Kmet later. So I think that's how you do it.
No, you didn't answer the question.
I'm going to say Kmet. As bad as Kmet was this year, he outscored Kincaid.
Yeah, and then now you put him in a Sam Laporta role, probably under Ben Johnson. Yeah. So,
Kmet, give me Kmet, which again, that speaks to some potential market inefficiencies.
Yes,
I'm looking at my tiers here, and based on this conversation, I got to move Kmet up 1 tier because right now I have him floating down there with like Jatavion Sanders, Hunter Henry, but I think it's a very like. Is it crazy to think that Kmet has a higher dynasty value than Kyle Pitts this time next year?
No,
I don't think that's insane.
Not at all. And based on this conversation, I think I got to look at moving my Kincaid shares. I really do. Like if and not to trade up and get some stud, because that's not happening. That's right. I think where we're going with this in this show. But if I could get an asset for him, because there's a tight end needy team, I'm probably still going to be okay at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
With Cole Kmet.
Going across the board here. Like, to bring it all home here, quarterback Jordan Love, running back that was a little different because they all kind of performed, except Breece Hall, but kind of expecting a bounce back. Wide receiver, Zay Flowers, DeVonta Smith, Jayden Reed, whoever you want to talk about there, and then Dalton Kincaid. Like Kincaid and Love especially, it's like, do you buy into the hype that is a bounce back? Like, I think that's the hype that you could talk about there in regards to this episode and avoiding a trap. Like, you could pivot from Kincaid for Jake Ferguson plus. And are you losing anything? No.
Nope.
And I know we've talked about Jake Ferguson, and Dan and I actually are on opposite ends right now, even though he's the Cowboys fan. But little Troy Aikman back there, he says differently. Troy Aikman and Josh Allen and Juju Smith-Schuster in a Steelers uniform. He's off the screen. I don't even know why I have him up there anymore. But you could get Evan Ingram plus. You get Jonnu Smith plus in some situations. It depends on the manager. Chiggy plus, Komet plus. So I have some Dalton Kincaid shares. Those are things I'm going to be exploring, especially in 2 PPR or if I have any in a start 2 tight end league, which actually I don't think I have, but there are opportunities that I would be looking for.
Yep.
I am loving not doing the show notes. New year, new me. And Mitch, I got to say, you've been killing it with the show notes. I've absolutely loved.
Good.
You didn't keep us to 40 minutes tonight, but sometimes that's not possible.
Well, yeah, that Jordan Love took 45 minutes to get through, but that's okay.
Plus, we had the additional the late Ben Johnson news that
Yes.
attacked some time on.
It did. All right. So for the final thoughts for the 275th time here on DT Weekly. Again, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe. Let us know in the comments where you agree, where you disagree. I think the conversations that have been going on in the comments have been fantastic. Had a lot of good back and forth. For the most part, respectful comments. For some, not so much. That's okay, though. That's okay. But anyway, let us know. And then use code Theory and hit the link below in the episode description. Again, the link in the episode description to check out ddfantasyfootball.com, code Theory. All right, Dan, final thoughts. What do you got, baby?
Short and sweet, man. Just I want to commend Mitch's loyalty and sportsmanship, rocking that sweet Detroit hat again tonight, man. Congrats on a great season. And JB, man, where is the Steelers, man?
I moved it around. I told you guys.
But it needs to be in your background. Your main team needs to be in your background on the show. No, that doesn't count, JB. You need to switch sides. You need to put the Steelers stuff on the left and then the Pitt and the Vikings on the right to be on brand. Listeners, next show, hopefully JB could correct this.
I moved it off of the screen intentionally.
But you're not a Vikings fan, JB.
I love Justin
Or a
Jefferson.
Bengals fan.
I love Ja'Marr Chase. I love Jack Youngblood.
We need an intervention, but that's going to be another episode.
Did you give me a final thought, or was it just Mitch?
That's it. Turn it over to Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't even know. Join the Discord. Come in some startups. I think we had 3 more go this week. We're gonna have more every week. Just join the Discord.
All right. So again, drop that like, drop that comment, subscribe, and then come check out some of the extra content. We have so many new shows popping up. We got a great team here at DD Fantasy Football. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, the new handle threw me for a loop. I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody next week. Enjoy the next round of the playoffs. Peace.